The art of animation has been with us for well over a century. However, the practice of animation has been experimented upon for much longer. In this video, I will go over the history of animation from its experimental infancy through its first golden age, all the way to where it stands in today's world. This is the history of animation. When many people think back to the inception of animation, they probably think of this. Steamboat Willie was actually the first notable breakthrough for Walt Disney when it debuted in 1928. However, while it was the first animation to feature synchronized sound, it was far from the first animation. To find the first animations, we need to look a lot further back. The earliest animated works came through the form of these viewing devices called phenakistoscopes, where the user would spin a cardboard disc and look through a series of apertures spinning above to reveal the series of images below, often regarded today as the earliest iterations of the animated GIF, due to the comparisons that they both feature a continuous loop of animation. As the 19th century progressed, similar devices appeared such as the zoetrope, the praxinoscope, the theater optique, and even the flipbook. But it wasn't until 1908 when we saw the first animation as we know the definition today. Created by the hands of French artist Émile Cohl, this short feature, by the name of Phantasmagorie, is widely regarded as the first animated feature. Though crude by today's standards, it demonstrated to the world what was possible through the medium of motion picture, not just to viewers, but to other professionals in this fledgling industry, and soon many other productions in animation followed suit. This brings us back to the 1930s, with Disney beginning to push itself into its first feature film. All the while, other animation studios were beginning to crop up, and so started what many regarded as the golden age of animation, which brought up many new classics from Disney, various originals and adaptations from Fleischer Studios, and the genesis of many favorite characters from Warner Brothers, not to mention the contributions from Hanna-Barbera. Most of these cartoons mainly being featured in film, but it wasn't until the late 1950s that animated television shows began to appear. It was due to the factor that more and more Americans were owning color televisions, and that feature-length animated films began to fade out, as now many Americans had the ability to view popular cartoons from the comfort of their own home. And though the golden age may have faded out in the late 1960s, there were still a lot of new developments for the art of animation just lingering beyond the horizon. From the fringes of computer science came the ability to generate three-dimensional objects. While in the 1970s, most images generated for film entertainment were pretty limited to wireframe models. But it wasn't until the 1980s until animation began to really take off, with the first solid 3D models being featured in Disney's Tron in 1982, and the first photorealistic CGI appearing in James Cameron's The Abyss in 1989. The 90s brought forth even more milestones in CGI animation, with Disney blending 2D animation with 3D environments in Beauty and the Beast, Steven Spielberg favoring 3D animated dinosaurs in place of stop-motion animation in Jurassic Park, and Disney, in collaboration with Studio Pixar, released the first feature-length computer-animated film, Toy Story, in 1995. New strides were made in the new millennium with the computer-animated film Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, as being the first photorealistic CGI movie supplemented with motion capture. Later, the same technologies and techniques would be used in other films, such as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Matrix trilogy, not to mention the multitudes of video games that use these technologies then and now. Of course, everything I've mentioned have been at the hands of professionals, but in the last couple of decades, a new movement in animation has been emerging. From the late 90s to today, as various kinds of animation software, instruments, and internet access became more available to the general public, a new revolution of amateur, user-made content spurred up as a result. This spawned forth various websites instrumental in hosting such content, such as Newgrounds and later YouTube. For some of these users, these projects were originally started as a hobby, but for some others it later evolved into careers such as freelance animators, independent professionals, or even joining or forming their own studios. The art of animation has been with us for well over a century, and it has evolved quite significantly over that time. All from its earliest experimentation to the fully fledged high-budget studio productions we see today. It has certainly come a long way, and it's very likely that there's still quite a ways to go yet in the foreseeable future and beyond.